There were new warnings today from the White House, what they're seeing in younger patients and the coronavirus now in all 50 states. President Trump calling himself a wartime president. In this country, the virus has now sickened at least 7,700 Americans. And of course, they believe that number is likely much higher given the very slow start in testing. Tonight, the death toll, at least 135. And to give you an idea of how quickly this is now spreading in this country, you can see how steep that curve is. A six-fold increase in a week, and again, the White House urging Americans to keep a safe distance from one another, to try to flatten that curve, to slow it down, to give hospitals a fighting chance.
There are concerning reports coming out of France and Italy about some young people getting seriously ill and very seriously ill in the ICUs. We think part of this may be that people heeded the early data coming out of China and coming out of South Korea that the elderly or those with pre-existing medical conditions were at particular risk.
In Spain, the outbreak continues to spread fast. There are now almost 14,000 confirmed cases with more than 600 deaths. All hotels will close in Spain by next Tuesday, and the Foreign Office has urged British holidaymakers to return home before then.
Italy tonight, the most staggering toll yet. 475 deaths in just the last 24 hours. And again, this happened in a country with a severe lockdown, with more doctors and beds per capita per person than here in the U.S.
We're sending, upon request, the 2 hospital ships. They're being prepared right now. They're massive ships. They're the big white ships with the Red Cross on the sides. One is called the Mercy and the other is called the Comfort. And they are in tip-top shape. They soon will be. They're getting ready to come up to New York. I spoke with
touchstones of normal life vanishing before our eyes. The Senate late today approved the first interventions for Americans caught financially flat-footed by this pandemic. It comes as officials warn the number of infected Americans will soar, largely as the pace of testing increases. Hospital ships are now being mobilized to ease the strain on the medical system. The military stepping in with critical supplies. But the reality tonight is this crisis is getting worse.
The death toll from this pandemic is now over 7,500, and there are more than 190,000 cases.
And now it's our time. We must sacrifice together because we are all in this together and we'll come through together. It's the invisible enemy. That's always the toughest enemy, the invisible enemy, but we're going to defeat the invisible enemy. I think we're going to do it even faster than we thought.
Coliseum Guns, how can I help you?
From New York to California.
With everything rapidly declining, it's now or never.
To Colorado.
A little bit of maybe I won't be able to get it tomorrow, a little bit of uncertainty.
Gun sales around the U.S. shooting sky high.
They're like literal zombies. They don't care. They just want something. They don't care what it is, what, make, model, doesn't matter. Just give me something. That's all they want.
A new drive-through coronavirus testing site is up and running in the metro Atlanta area. It is one of several drive-through sites the county health officials are running across Georgia.
To move to a position where a travel ban will be placed on all non-residents, non-Australian citizens coming to Australia, and that will be in place from 9 p.m. tomorrow evening.
WHO advice, it hasn't been brought to my attention, but clearly we have been advising Panadol for the symptom relief. Let me be clear, because there has been some social media misunderstandings that Panadol is a treatment for COVID-19. Panadol does not treat COVID-19, it treats the symptoms, which might be fever, muscle aches and pains.
Yeah, but the bottom line is the deaths in the last 24 hours have taken off significantly.
Yeah, there's basically been about a 30% increase. It's gone up it's gone up to 104 now. All of those in the UK, 99 of them. So this is a very significant increase. So it's gone up by about a third.
And we've planned by the Trump administration for the possibility that this pandemic could flare for 18 months or longer and include multiple waves of illness.
In a very dramatic way, in Europe, you have the outbreak goes like this, and then it spares up like this, and then after a while it goes down. If it's left to its own devices, you'll get the maximum peak, a lot of suffering, a lot of illness, a lot of death.
From South Africa to Ethiopia, panic buying has set in as coronavirus sweeps across the continent. A surge of cases across sub-Saharan Africa this month has sent governments racing to act and customers scrambling to stock up.
A weekday, a working day, but the centre of London is empty, as people work from home to avoid spreading COVID-19. Out in the suburbs, it's a different story.
I couldn't work without the internet for conference calls and emails and everything.
After schools shut their gates from Friday afternoon, they will remain closed for most pupils, for the vast majority of pupils, until further notice.
Long lines we're seeing tonight across the country for tests. And the reality check here from doctors and ERs coast to coast. What do they have in stock? One ER doctor saying he is now guarding his own mask. ABC's Matt Gutman tonight on that part of the story.
Tonight, emergency room doctors and nurses warning that critical protective gear is running low and putting them in danger.
All right, as we've been saying, another awful day on Wall Street. The market's just closing. Let's take a look. 19,903. The market's down over 1,300 points.
Surgeon General is now admitting something that you have been saying for a while, which is that we're now on a point on our own epidemiological curve where you can basically see our future by looking at the timeline of where Italy was about 10 days or 2 weeks ago.
That people who are in that incubation period, aka asymptomatic, we know that they can transmit. And we certainly know that people with, once they do start having symptoms, early and mild, also can transmit. Some research that has come out shows that in fact, the viral shedding, which is a measure of transmissibility, is high in asymptomatic individuals.
Italy is the richest part of Italy. It's not some backwater when it comes to advanced medicine or advanced anything. I mean, that's where they make the most expensive yachts in the world. That's literally where they make Ferraris. And there are big modern hospitals there full of lots of fully qualified doctors and world-class equipment. And that place is where they are now losing more than 300 people a day, 475 deaths in the last 24 hours. Reporter Chico Harlan wrote this up today for the Washington Post with the last line that'll put your heart in your throat. Quote, even as lockdown measures have gradually slowed the number of new cases, the country's death toll has exploded, more than tripling in the span of a week. Italy's death toll is increasing exponentially in a way that mirrors the growth of total cases earlier this month, as people lose battles with the disease after several weeks.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray.
In Italy tonight, infections are spiking. The country under lockdown for the past week saw its death toll rise by 475 today, the biggest one-day jump. And experts say the U.S. may not be far behind. The respected Imperial College London recently released a study that estimated without any action, 2.2 million Americans could die from the virus, a startling report shared with the Trump administration.
The head of the World Health Organization says many countries are overwhelmed. But there is positive news from China, where only one new case was recorded in Wuhan, where the virus began.
People in Spain might be in forced isolation, but that hasn't stopped them protesting. Today banging pots and pans from their balconies, demanding their king donates the millions of euros he's reportedly received from Saudi Arabia to the Spanish healthcare system. 588 people have died in Spain, including 17 elderly residents at one care home. But that number is dwarfed by the number of deaths in Italy, the centre of the outbreak, where more than 3,000 have died.
From Monday the 23rd, the New York Stock Exchange has decided to close the trading floor. But, Wolf, electronic trading will continue. So the market is not being closed. Only the floor.
Nurses say they're running out of needed supplies, things like life-saving ventilators. In an emotional interview, the Pope is now asking everyone to think of those doctors and nurses, all of the medical personnel on the front lines of this fight, fighting, sacrificing their lives for this virus. He's also saying we're not out of the woods yet, reminding everyone to take the lockdown seriously. Experts finding 8,000 people in just the past week.
National Governors Association today, which is tracking state-by-state responses, I was honestly shocked to find that there are 7 states as of right now, where there are no mandated bans on gatherings of any size, there are no state mandates ordering restaurants or bars or any other businesses to close, there's no state mandate for school closures. None of those things. In Idaho, Mississippi, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Wyoming.
Well, listen, we're living in a different world. It's going to impact all of us psychologically in some way, shape, or form. I think a lot of us are getting cabin fever just by not being able to go into the office as well.
Why do you keep using this? A
Because
lot of
it
people
comes
say
from
it's
China.
racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all.
A person at the White House used the term
just a
kung
term.
flu. My question is, do
Kung
you think
flu.
that's wrong, kung flu? And do you think using the term Chinese virus, that puts Asian Americans at risk, that people might
No, not
target
at all.
them?
No, not at all. I think they probably would agree with it 100%. It comes from China.
Just announced on Twitter a temporary closing of the northern border to all non-essential traffic. The president saying this is being done by mutual consent with the Canadian government, temporarily closing our northern border.
Suppress and control the epidemics. Countries must isolate, test, treat, and trace. If they don't, transmission chains can continue at a low level, then resurge once physical distancing measures are lifted. WHO continues to call on all countries to implement a comprehensive approach with the aim of slowing down transmission